When we speak about goals and objectives, what we are referring to are either positive traits that we wish to maintain, or other traits that we either wish to improve or change, or traits that don't yet exist that we'd like to develop. Some of the goals we should keep in mind when conducting needs assessment may already be specified in organizational strategy documents. Chief among them would be the organization's mission and vision statements, which are goals writ large, a long-term look at how the entire organization is supposed to conduct itself and what its reason for being might be. These goals can vary based on internal factors, industry trends, and the market environment. Sometimes our goals might be to simply get better from an internal standpoint. In other cases, it may be to combat a threat that another industry competitor poses to us, or to address market demand in an effective way. These goals can have varying levels of importance to the organization at large. Some may be very important, while others may be mostly important to certain divisions or lines of business, while not being critical to the organization's overall reason for being. Furthermore, goals may have varying levels of support. While in theory, all of these goals might be important and formally endorsed by the organization, the reality is we tend to put our focus in certain areas. And so understanding where key stakeholders have that focus can give us a better idea of what needs might be perceived as most critical for us to address. Examples of potential goals that could be found within a company would include improving uptime or service availability for customers, creating new features and capabilities within our products, addressing competitive action effectively, launching a new product meant to compete in the market, for example, improving customer satisfaction or improving employee satisfaction if we're focused more internally. Growing revenue and reducing costs is also one of the goals that we most often see within companies of any type of work or industry. However, it's important to also understand the difference between goals and objectives when we speak about the two. Goals are long-term and ongoing in nature. Objectives, on the other hand, are short-term and have a defined time horizon. Goals are qualitative in nature, whereas objectives should be measurable, quantitative in nature, something that we can know if we have achieved or not. Goals are meant to be aspirational. We should always be trying to do the very best for our customers. On the other hand, objectives are verifiable. When we say we want to do the best for our customers, what does that mean? How can we measure it? What precisely do we expect of ourselves in order to hold that end of our ideal up properly? Goals may be decomposed into objectives, and this can be very helpful because we can take these overriding, lofty concepts and bring them down to earth, make them something more actionable for us. When it comes to our requirements, those are kind of like the rules we need to follow. But objectives, those are the targets that we're trying to hit. Objectives may help to justify the business case for undertaking new work, because if that work helps us to fulfill some of these overall organizational objectives that might be in place, based on the goals that the organization has set, then that adds value and helps to strengthen the case for action. When we define objectives, we should ensure that they are in line with the principles and desires that we see in our goals. Further, they should be rooted in our needs assessments and in feedback obtained from stakeholders. We can look at these objectives and make sure that they are in line with what we actually see on the ground, especially when it comes to our unique problem or opportunity we're seeking to learn more about and address. These objectives should be tested against a 5-component check in order to gauge their quality and usefulness. This test is known as SMART. To have a SMART objective, we have one that's in line with the principles and desires seen in our goals, but also goes a number of steps further. First of all, it's specific. It's clear and leads to an observable outcome that we can verify. It's measurable. That means that we can test to make sure that we have indeed met that objective. It's achievable. That means that it's realistic in nature, especially within the context of the resources expected to be available. This is where understanding the priority of different goals within the organization can be important. We can't expect to be able to apply the full weight of our organization towards solving this individual problem. That's why we need to understand how important it is and therefore how likely it is to be given a top priority within the company and what resources might be made available accordingly. Therefore, we'll have a better idea of whether or not it's an achievable objective. The objective should also be relevant. In other words, it should align with the company's vision, mission, and goals. If we come up with an objective that we can't directly tie back to a goal, then it's not actually a very good objective at all. Finally, it should be time-bound in nature. In other words, we expect it to be complete within a specific time frame that aligns with our business's needs. Whereas goals are ongoing, objectives should have some sort of time period placed on them in order for us to be able to best measure that progress. After all, if we say that we expect to reduce costs by 10%, but we don't say when we expect to do that by, then that's not very helpful, is it? Just the same, if we say that we're going to launch a new product to combat the competition, well, if we don't say when, then by the time we eventually launch that product, the rest of the market may have passed us by, and therefore the objective would no longer align with the business's true and ongoing needs. Let's take a look at a couple smart objective examples. Here's the first one. We want to improve our software's efficiency in order to reduce processing time by 10%. This will help us to improve customer satisfaction over the next 6 months. Now, this is a smart objective because it fulfills all 5 of these requirements. In orange, we see that it's specific. We want to improve software efficiency in order to reduce processing time. It's measurable. We want to reduce that processing time by 10% in order to improve the software's efficiency. We can also argue that this is an achievable goal. We're not trying to reduce the processing time by 99%. In fact, 10% sounds like it's probably a reasonable goal, and that's something that we could verify by speaking with key stakeholders and understanding the realities of our technical platform. It's relevant in nature because doing this, reducing our processing time, will help us to improve customer satisfaction, which, here, we can assume is one of the organization's overall goals. Finally, it's also time-bound. We have a deadline here. This needs to be accomplished within the next 6 months. Let's look at another example. Here, we want to reduce departmental materials waste by 5% per quarter for the next year as part of the company's company-wide environmental initiative. Here, again, we see that it's specific in nature. We want to reduce departmental materials waste by a measurable amount of 5% per quarter. We consider this to be achievable based on the conversations we've had with key stakeholders. And we see that this is relevant because it's part of the company's overall environmental initiative, which indicates that it's one of the company's goals. Furthermore, it's also time-bound in nature. We want to accomplish this at a rate of 5% per quarter for the next year. So this is a specific amount of time in which this is meant to take place. Creating objectives that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound allows us to not only gain consensus from stakeholders, but make a firmer, clearer business case for why action should be taken and leave us in a better position for success if we do begin to undertake action, because now we'll know what it means when we've succeeded.